I'm talking about. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the June 15th meeting of the Revere City Council Subcommittee on Ways and Means. Everyone, please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll of the members attending?
Roll call of the members of the City Council Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Janino is absent. Councilor Morabito is absent. Councilor Patch here.
Yeah.
Councilor Rotundo is absent. And Councilor Powers
Here.
here.
And we do have a quorum because
and
Councilor Haas is
sorry, Council
automatically a
President
member
Haas.
of the committee.
First item on the agenda is the Inspectional Services Department.
Mr. Catanazzo.
Good evening, Councilors. Nick Catanazzo, Director of Inspectional Services.
What I'm going to do is open each department up for questions, and then if anybody has any recommendations prior to the next meeting, which will be the final meeting of the Committee on Ways and Means, then you can submit them and we'll take them under advisement at that point. I'm going to call on Mr. President, Councilor Haas. Paul, you have any questions on the budget?
So I'm here representing the six groups that I'm in charge of, which would be the Building Department, Health Department, Weights and Measures Department, Substance Abuse, Healthy Communities, and the school nurses. So that covers the six groups that the ISD is in charge of at present time. So if you have any questions on any of them, I'd like to.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Haas.
since your department, some of the people are retiring, how many openings do you presently have there?
Basically, right now we're looking for an electrical inspector right now. We have out there, right, 8. We only have a part-time electrical inspector, but as you know, right now with all the building and construction going on within the city, that it's just inadequate to have a part-time inspector. Plus, all these solar companies that are coming into the city, they all need an electrical inspection. So the average day for an electrical inspector in the city right now could be from 17 to 20-something inspection, which is impossible for a part-time employee. Right now, my job basically will be, they're still working on my job. It hasn't been posted yet. Also, the food inspector, Tony DeGosta's retired. His job hasn't been posted yet. So we'll possibly, within the department, we'll probably be moving somebody up into the food, within the, we have somebody that's qualified to do food inspections. But that will leave an opening for a sanitation inspector. So probably we got, within our department, three openings, I would say. Electrical inspector, depending how the mayor wants to format my job. And Tony's job will be taken over by somebody internally, and then we'll just hire an outside sanitation inspector.
Is that advertised yet, Nick?
Huh?
Is that Tony's job advertised as of yet?
No, it has not been. No, no.
Let me ask you a question pertaining to the electrical inspector.
Sure.
You know, they just put them on a roof.
Yeah.
Who checks to make sure the roofs are adequately structured that they can take that weight?
Oh, basically, it's the building department, building inspector would check that. Yeah.
Would that be like Benny going out checking? it
Yeah,
out?
well, no, I mean, it could be any building inspector. They're all certified. It could be a building inspector, plus the fire department has to check to make sure there's adequate room in the event of a fire, that they can walk up on top of the roof.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta have like a walkway, that's what they require. So it's basically a joint effort, and the electrical part is for the electrical inspector. So it's basically 3 different entities have to check that out.
Okay, so that they adequately check it, no question.
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. It's good to have you here.
Yeah,
At
thank you.
least- At least 2 days a week.
2 days a
That's
week,
better
yeah.
than nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you did a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hess. Councilor Patch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, again, it's, like I said before, for the Monday, this past Monday, with the, everybody else, all the other directors and chiefs, it's a very lean budget. You know, I want to make, actually, I want to make one point before I start.
Sure.
I noticed on social media how somebody kind of criticized the council because we haven't added money to the budget for positions or stuff. And I just want to make it clear that we can't add money
Right.
to the budget. We can only
I
take
realize that.
money
Sure.
from the budget.
Correct.
And I just want the people out there to understand that this is basically the mayor's budget, and as I said, he's done as far as I see, a pretty good
Right.
job, but it's very lean.
Yeah.
So I just want
Yeah.
to put that out there, so they...
Yeah, the only thing we're working on is basically to probably increase the budget on rodent control. It's totally, right now, it's totally inadequate. It's about 15,000 to 20,000. Seeing where, it's not just Revere, it's surrounding towns. We're having it's a huge rodent issue, as everybody knows, and we get a ton of calls on it. So the mayor's thinking, he asked me to come up with a figure, and I said probably another 30,000 we could take out of the 40U funds, which we brought in over $1 million this year, in 40U, which is a tremendous amount of money for over the last few years. So it's been a big increase. So, you know, that's sort of a drop in the bucket to transfer some of that money out of the 40U program. And the mayor's working on that, and he agreed that we have to do something, so.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah,
definitely in favor.
Well, he's all for it, too.
For that,
Mayor
yes.
Arrigo's all for that, yes. So I just wanted to make a comment on that.
As far as, you know, I didn't know you were coming for all these departments, so I just prepared for the building and inspection.
Well,
But
that's
I mean,
okay. I can make it short, I can, you know, I can find something to do.
No, but you answered the question that Councilor asked, that I know you're revamping over there. Everybody's either retiring
Yeah.
or already had retired.
Yeah, but, you know-
Weights and Means,
Yeah.
he left. As far as the building department, I think you have one vacant. No, as far as the electric,
Yeah.
to get back to the wiring inspector,
Yeah,
now, Lenny's, he's part-time.
part-time, yeah.
So would he stay part-time and would you,
Well,
It's
well,
not- would you hire a full-time?
we got 2 or 3 different type options we're going to try to use. I'd like to have a full-time inspector there all day, and probably a part-time inspector. that's what we need, because we're getting killed on calls, and, and if we don't have adequate support to do the inspections, then it just doesn't make the department look good. Doesn't make the whole city look good. And, everybody's calling, they need this inspected. All the construction going on in the city, and these solar companies come in, and it's just, it's a nightmare. That's really, over the last 3 years, that's increased tremendously. So we always had a full-time inspector. We dropped it down to a part-time inspector when we, years ago, and then, sort of the economy went south at that time. And now with all the building going on in the city and all these solar things, I think it's really, we need probably an inspector and a half in that position. But the problem is that getting somebody is really difficult, because everybody's working and making, all these electricians are making, and plumbers are making tons of money, because the construction trades are so, so doing well, I should say, yeah.
So my suggestion to you, to the mayor, is he should probably maybe put in the budget for a full-time position, and also leave the part-time position there. Because I agree with you. I mean, I'd vote for that.
Yeah,
I would definitely vote for that.
let's say vacant. Yeah, he's got, basically, they got .062 hours. That's what Lenny would be working, if you look on the last page there. And then the vacant part is like a part-time, probably under .38 is, probably 16 hours or 17 hours. But that's something we could tweak, and work on. We got the jobs posted, but nobody's applied. Yeah, we haven't had anybody apply for it yet, so.
The total figure of that position in the assistant position should be in the budget. That's
Right.
what I'm trying to stress.
Yeah, the problem is you need a master electrician. You can't just have a journeyman. You need a master with all the jobs and, the high-tech wiring being done in all these buildings and stuff. You can't have a journeyman. So you need a master electrician. So that's, again, a problem. So the mayor's been trying to work out a figure on maybe we should up the price on how we pay somebody to try to get somebody in. But we're still working on that, so.
Okay.
That's something we can sort of
Just a
revisit.
suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a good one,
I
and-
totally agree with you. You need
Yeah,
both.
no,
Yeah.
the mayor, he's well aware of it, so, and he's been working on it, so.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Really
Councilor
don't see
Pats.
anything else
Councilor Novoselsky. Yeah, Nick, I just have an observation and a question. If there is so much building going on out there and so much work for electricians, maybe shouldn't our revenue from electrical permits be increasing, thereby allowing us that extra money to perhaps hire a full-time
Are
electrical?
you talking about increasing the fees for
No, I'm not
electrical
saying-
permits? Is that what
All
you're
of the
saying?
work that's going on out there.
Yeah,
So there must be a lot of permitting.
there is.
So there must be a lot of revenue coming in from
Yep.
that permitting.
Yep.
And maybe that could go toward hiring a full-time electrical inspector. Because I agree with you, that's something you need,
Yeah,
particularly after incidents like, the fire the other night, things like that.
yeah. Well, the trades, like I said, the trades have increased, even the building department, with the safe housing task force we have with the illegal apartments and illegal rooming houses, that's taken up a tremendous amount of time, something that we have to do because it's a problem. It's a huge problem in the city right now. So it'd be a huge problem in every city, but I think we address it more than most cities, which is a good thing. And, we have a really good task force, but it takes up a tremendous amount of time of our building department and, the group, so, and plus they got to do their inspections on buildings.
Now,
So
You're the Director of Inspectional Services, or were?
I am,
You are, okay.
yes.
You haven't retired yet.
I have retired.
Well, my question is, the money's in there for your salary,
That's correct.
but you're going to be working a couple of days a week.
I'm being paid out of that salary, yes, right.
That was my question.
That's correct, until they hire somebody.
Okay.
Yes.
And at that point, what happens then?
Your guess is as good as mine. I might be
Okay.
sitting in my backyard.
All right, and I noticed the other item that's not here is a food inspector.
Food inspector is, like I said, that's going to be, we have to post it because it's a union job, and
It's not-
we have somebody in the office that's qualified, but
It's
we
not
have to go
fun-
through the union.
It's not funded in the budget.
It's,
Well,
well,
it's funded in FY'17, but not 18.
hold on a minute. Let me just take a look. Building. Just give me 1 second, John. Got so many. Oh my God.
It's on page 99.
No, I know, I got it. It's in there, 56,932. Chief Health Inspector.
No, I'm referring to food inspector. It was originally funded last year at 51,593, and there's no amounts in there for FY'18.
Well, it doesn't actually, it just says Chief Health Inspector. That is the food inspector.
No, see, that's something we don't know.
Well,
That's right.
no, okay. Well, that's how they worded it this year.
Okay.
You're probably right.
All right.
So, but that's Tony. He is the food inspector, and that is funded at that particular price that I just
All right,
mentioned.
all right. Ira, I know you had some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, I can't give you any more kudos for your department that I've been knowing for in the last 16 years.
Thank you.
You know, you guys are very receptive and responsive, and they really do their job. You know, I'm not going to pick anyone specific, it's just the whole team.
Thank
They
you.
work well as a team.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sorry to see you go full-time, and I'm sorry to see Tony go
Yeah.
go part-time even.
Old
But-
school.
Yeah, that's true. First of all, I want to talk about the rodent control.
Sure.
Now, you mentioned about putting more money into it. Don't we use the money from the dumpster money?
Yeah, but, okay, so the permitting off of the dumpsters, Counselor, is probably about $11,600. So we do use that, and it's, like I said, it's inadequate. It's not enough money.
Is that the only thing we use that for?
Yeah. So,
Okay, well, that's fine, I
yeah.
don't mind.
Yeah, well, just to explain to you, each time we go out, we're one of the few cities that actually bait people's properties. If we find a problem, we send an inspector by, you see a burrow in their yard, we'll do it. If we don't see it, we won't have it baited. It runs between $160 to $220 just for one bait box and the rodent company going out. And then the rest is on the homeowner. And we only do that once for them. Yeah, because we,
With a waiver. They have to sign a waiver?
they have to sign a waiver. Yeah, that protects the city for domestic animals if something happened, so we make them sign a waiver, yes.
What does it usually cost for a follow-up from the?
Follow-up is not expensive, because what happens is, on rodent control, the bait boxes, the rodent goes into the bait box, eats the bait, goes back to the burrow and dies. So when they go out to inspect the bait boxes, if the bait has been eating, and if I say it's an active area, and they might have to go out 2 or 3 times to rebait the boxes, and once they see the bait is still in the bait box, that means that, and to answer your question,
No activity.
it's probably between $40 and $50.
$50,
Yeah.
I actually My guys came the other day, and they actually found one in the bait box.
They found, yeah?
Dead
He
rodent.
must have
In
liked
the
what he
bait
was eating.
box. Yeah. He was hungry, I
How much do they
guess.
charge, how much do they charge you, may I ask? Just curious.
Between 35 and
Yeah,
50.
that's what it is, yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't know how they guide it, but
Yeah.
that's their issue, but
Yeah.
it's just something we have to do.
I know how they died, but I ain't gonna explain that.
No, I
here.
understand. No, we're not looking for that. But, that was just my question
Sure.
on,
So like I said, the mayor,
people understand that we do assist them on the initial
yes,
baiting.
yes,
Is
we
that
do.
one box normally?
One
or two?
box, yeah,
One box.
one box, yeah, one box. If they want to add boxes when the person's out there, the cost is for the technician going out there, they got to pay him, and then the baiting of the box, So if they add a box, it'll probably be 30 or 40, another box,
Yeah.
$30 or $40,
Yeah.
So, but at least we try to assist them. And just to say one more thing, that I think one of the big thing is when we do sewer mitigation work, I went to a lot of meetings on this, and a lot of towns, Boston, city of Boston, they bait their sewer lines, and Donnie might be able to tell you more about that when he comes up there. And I talked to it about DPW director, and he agreed that maybe that's something we should look into in the future when we start doing mitigation
Absolutely.
on storage.
Because you're definitely disturbing
Yes.
them down.
Yes,
down
yeah,
there.
right,
Yeah.
that's their home.
Right.
So-
The other issue I wanted to take up is salary bases and other appropriations on the list we have. I know it's like some people have a base salary, some are the same, but the other appropriation salary column is different.
Yes. Yeah, some of that could be longevity. Some of that could be for degrees, various degrees that they have. Some of them could be for, let's say hypothetically, the building inspectors, when they get their certifications. If you get all your three certifications, that you're entitled more money. The plumbing inspector, if you're a master plumber, you get more money. I don't know if it's 3.5%. I think it's 3.5% more. And if you're a master electrician, you get 3.5% also. So that's what all those columns are, Ira. I know they're,
Yeah. Would on the base salaries, why wouldn't it increase from 17 to 18?
because the longevity increases.
No, just on the base salary.
Oh,
forget
on the base.
Yeah. Some of them are the same in 17, and some of them are the same in 18.
Okay, give me an example, which one?
A local inspector, and also the plumbing inspector.
Yeah, okay, the plumbing inspector's salary did increase because he was in some sort of mitigation because of the backflow. He wasn't being paid for the backflow, his backflow, so they increased his salary because of that.
Okay, but the base hasn't increased.
It has increased.
Has not.
Has not, that's correct.
Has not increased.
Okay, you're talking about the plumbing inspector now?
That's one, but the other one is one of the local inspectors. Actually, both the local inspectors.
Okay, let me take a look.
It's on page 96.
Yep.
If you have the page numbers.
Yeah, I don't have pages here, I just have,
Okay. It's in group 2.
yeah, Mark Locke. Okay.
I don't know, it's-
Okay, so basically, well, I'm looking at, well, on my sheet, I don't know, yeah, you might have a different sheet, but my sheet says it went from 68,000, I'm talking about the plumbing inspector, Mark Locke right now, 68,854 to 70,677.
okay, I was looking at the,
Yeah, you were looking at
First
FY
page.
217, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
so that's the recommended total. Well, that's the recommended total from the mayor.
right.
But that's only his base salary is still the same.
It's still an increase of
17,
Well,
$1,823.
It's, I don't, there could be I'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
That middle, mine's a little, I think my sheet is a little different than yours, but I can certainly find out that information and get back to you.
Yeah, actually, when I'm looking at the building inspector, same thing, the base salary is the same. The only thing that changed was other appropriations salary.
Okay.
So just
No,
curious,
I'll get you an answer on that,
and
okay?
that was
I see what you
17,
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you asked for a recommendation. which the mayor reduced.
Yes,
Based on the totals, not on his base salary.
right, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Just curious, I
Okay,
see it,
no,
and.
I'll let you know.
I just thought everybody would be getting some kind of cost of living increase.
Well, we're in, right now, we're in union negotiations still. We're out like a year and a half now, and we are presently haven't, I think some of the departments, I think DPW and I believe fire have settled. We have not.
And these folks are under the union?
They're all under the union,
So
yes.
okay.
Yeah, they're all under the union,
Okay.
yes,
So
Local
that'll
22.
probably be retro.
So we
later,
haven't,
yeah.
we haven't negotiated yet. We are presently negotiating
Okay.
now, I should say.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Counselor.
Sure.
Did you have another question, Charlie?
Yes, thanks for letting me speak again, Mr. Chairman. I just got a couple of questions. There was 2 more code enforcers hired last year, or this year? Right?
Last year. Okay, so here's what, I'll explain that to you. The housing inspector, which was John Ferrara, moved into the weights and measures position, which was Bobby Cronin's position
Right.
at Weights and Measures. Rick LaCentra was hired as the housing inspector. He was hired last year. Michael Wells was hired as a sanitation inspector. Yes. So we had 2 new hires last year. We didn't replace those, we replaced those positions.
Right. So, there's one
We didn't add.
there's one vacant that it says it's been moved, 51,000, or 55,000. What,
Take a look. You're talking on health now?
code enforcement, and health inspector.
Health inspector, okay. Let me just take a look. So, right now, code enforcement, we have 3 outside sanitation inspectors, 2 full-time, 1 part-time. We have 1
Where-
food,
yeah,
excuse
but-
me,
I'm sorry, Nick. But where was that, it says it was moved, that money, where was it moved to? That's-
okay. I don't know where you're looking right now.
Well, right under code enforcement, it says vacant, moved, 55,000. Personnel,
You're probably looking at something different than I'm looking at.
well, the first person is you.
Yeah, Director Inspection,
And then it goes down,
Chief Health Inspector,
And then under code,
Code Enforcement.
which
Yeah.
retired.
Yeah.
But then the next one, code enforcement, where Rob is, Wells, and, right there, it says moved, vacant, moved.
Yes. Please pay the source from the source behind.
Right under, Rob's name there.
Okay, let me look. Okay, so we got vacant, moved. I'm not too sure what that means. I'd have to check on that. I don't know what that means.
And,
But all those people, like I said, Michael Wells is sanitation inspector, Rob's sanitation inspector, Frank Scafani's part-time sanitation inspector, 20 hours a week, and Rick LaCentra is the housing inspector.
right, and they all do a fine job, thank you. But,
Thank you.
I just got another question there, because I didn't know we were doing the community health.
Community
Community
initiatives?
initiatives.
Okay, let me get,
They do an unbelievable job, this group. And I'm glad to see, I know they were getting paid by grant. So now they're in their salary?
well,
Are they still under grants?
basically, we have 2 different groups that we work with. Healthy Communities,
I'm
Healthy Communities, which is
I'm
dental.
talking about the whole list
Oh,
that's there.
and you're talking about substance use?
No,
Any-
the healthy community manager, the neighborhood organizer, the active living coordinator, HCI clerk, all of them were, I believe, well, except for the, I don't know about the health, the clerk, HCI clerk. But the other three I know were on grants.
Right,
And now it's showing a salary.
yes.
So,
Well, okay, we can explain that. Basically, a lot of
not
the...
that I don't, I'm glad that
Oh,
they
okay.
do a great job. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
doubting their work.
Sure. But in that particular department, a lot of the grants have dried up in that department, and the mayor, that, like you just said, they do a great job, that he decided to fund those departments. I think there's, that department is, and they have one grant left, and I think it's, Dimple, correct me if I'm wrong, is about $40,000 left in that particular, that's why you see the salaries are like, the grants are not shown on these sheets, but they have if you'd like to look at any of the grants which are
No,
left, they have them.
I just like an explanation.
Sure.
I
And
know
that's it, yeah,
a grant, and now it's,
right.
rightfully so, it's going to be, they're keeping them, and it's going to be a
Yes,
salary. So
that's
that-
correct.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Any other councilors have any other questions regarding the inspectional services, health, and/or building department? That's it, Nick.
Okay. Ira, I'll try to get that answer for you on that, okay? All right? Thank you, gentlemen, I appreciate your time.
Public Works. What page?
Okay, we're good. You got stripes going that way, she's gonna go on this way. Yeah. All right, I'll see you. Take care, thank you.
Madam Superintendent, would you care to come up? We'll take you. Yeah. We don't have a copy of the school department budget. You do? No. Not by position, certainly. Maybe perhaps you could give us an overview
Sure.
of your department.
Sure thing. I can give you an overview. So I'll start by saying, which I know that you all know, the school department is largely funded by the state. Over 2/3 of our budget comes through Chapter 70 state aid, and 1/3 of our budget comes from the city, which of course we're very thankful to have. And for fiscal 18, our total budget is just over 91 million. 31 million of that will come from the state, and 31 million will come from the city, and 60 million will come from the state. And when we do the chargebacks between the city and the school department for shared services such as student transportation, snow removal, things like that, there's actually a net chargeback of negative $12 million where the city has that money allocated because of the services that the city provides to the school department. And that gives us a total appropriated budget of just over 80 million. As you know, we've been struggling both this year and last year with the change in the definition of poverty at the state level, which has put us in a difficult position in the school department where we just have enough money to make through what our payroll and with staff and salaries and allocations for student tuitions and other pieces of that go. For our salary accounts, we spend just over $1.5 million on district administration. The largest chunk of money, $46 million, goes to curriculum and instruction. That pays for our teachers, all of our special education services, occupational therapists, physical therapists, et cetera. We have $3 million in supplemental student services. About $2 million goes into facilities and maintenance. Just under $1 million in employee benefits, and a very small portion goes to community programs. And that is the piece of the community school, which we share with the city, that the school department pays a piece of and the city pays the rest of.
How much was your budget increased over last year, and what portion of that increase comes from the city?
So our total budget increase was only about, and we're still waiting for final numbers to come out from the Senate. As you know, they're in conference committee right now, but the latest numbers we have is that we're going to have a $3.2 million increase over last year for the school department budget. And the portion that comes from the city, the portion of that 3.2 million would be just over $1 million.
Thank you.
I can mention, if you wanted me to give you just an update on staffing, last year, when we had the first round of financial crisis due to the change in definition of poverty, we had 17 teaching positions that we were not able to fill. This year, with the $3.8 million increase, we're looking to replace a total of 18 teaching positions. So we're actually going to be back to where we were last year, plus one. So in effect, over the last 2 years, we will have only hired one additional teacher in terms of total numbers. And that's challenging because over the last 2 years, we have over 500 additional students in the district. So with 500 new students, we really should be looking at plus 20 teachers in our roles. And we're only looking at a total change over the last 2 years of plus one. And that's because of the increases in fixed costs and the cost of tuition out for special needs students and the money that goes out to charter schools eats the bulk of the $3.2 million increase that we saw. So really very little of that money is actually visited on our students. We were able to also put some other new positions in that were not teaching positions, but which were also cut last year. So that includes six positions, two of which were technology positions. One was the director of guidance. We survived this past school year with no director of guidance, and Jonathan Mitchell, who's the deputy principal at the high school, actually took over those responsibilities. But we realize it's in the best interest of students to have somebody in that role guiding them on a full-time basis into their college and career readiness. We're increasing the staff in our heart department by one. That's the department that focuses on working with our homeless students, kids who have chronic absenteeism, and kids who have court involvement. And the number of kids in those areas have increased as well, which is why we felt the need to increase those positions by one. We're also increasing the number of paraprofessionals who support our special needs classrooms by 3. So I guess that's a pretty good summary of the budget. I don't know if there were specific questions.
That $2 million increase that isn't picked up by the city, that's Chapter 70 money?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Any councilors have any questions? Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the governor's plan to reduce education, how are we going to administer that if he does make an additional cut to education?
If there were to be additional cuts to education, then we'd really have to think about how we move forward with the school district. We've been very diligent this past year in saving every penny that we could. I have to say, all of the principals, all of the curriculum directors, everybody who manages different funding accounts for the school department has been very diligent about only spending money that they absolutely had to. So we do have a little money in our carry forward account that if we were to see a couple $100,000 cut from the governor's budget, we would be able to apply those funds and be able to work through. Anything beyond that, we'd have to start thinking about cutting some of these positions that we just spent all the time adding back in.
Adding back in,
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Any other questions? I don't have any other questions. I mean, I think you've given us a pretty good overview of the school department. I do have one question. Where are we now with respect in the different elementary schools with respect to classroom size?
So we were able to, some of the new positions that we put on this year are intended to combat classroom size issues, particularly at the Hill School. The two schools where we've seen the most significant challenges are Hill and Paul Revere. And we were able to introduce new staff through this FY'18 budget that would alleviate that situation at the Hill. The challenge we have at the Paul Revere School is that there is no space to allow for another classroom teacher that could reduce the overall class size at the grade level that is really tight, and that's going to be grade 5 next year. The little bit of good news is that overall enrollment at the Paul Revere School is down. So we feel like when we get through this hurdle of this one particularly large class, the other class sizes are reasonable, and we're hoping that that trend is going to start to continue for the next few years until, hopefully we can have a larger, broader school plan put in place that involves the creation of a new high school, the use of the new high school as a central middle school, and then the reallocation of some middle schools as elementary schools to alleviate the stress across the whole system.
I think that would probably help tremendously if we could do that.
It would be fantastic.
The high school first, though, right?
That's right, and our application is in with the MSBA for the core program. As you know, we applied last year with your support, which we were very thankful for, but we were not invited in. And so they did applaud us for the strength of our application, but they, like everybody else, are suffering with the same monetary financial issues at the state level and didn't have the funding for as many projects as they typically did. But we did reapply with their urging, and we should hear in late fall or early winter as to where we stand with the new application.
Thank you very much, Madam Superintendent. Councilor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Doctor. Regarding the maintenance costs, does the school department put the cost of electricity for all the buildings in their budget?
We do, yes, yep.
Do? Okay, so
All of our utilities are paid through our budget, yep.
they are, okay. And we talked about the maybe new high school?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Now, did we ever, I know the Paul Revere is small. Did we ever consider looking at adding on to it?
I know that when that school was originally built, they were talking at the time during design phase about having another level on the school. They decided not to do that. And to be honest with you, I would need to look into the structural feasibility of whether or not that's a possibility. I don't know that they built out foundations that would support an additional story on that structure. But, it's certainly something that if Plan A doesn't go through, that we would need to look at.
I would even consider or suggest you looking into actually not necessarily going up, but going out over that play area where we have the steps that we have our names on,
Yeah,
expanding a couple floors over that with pylons and doing an L-shaped building if we had to, and look into that
if we had to,
way.
yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah.
'cause
The
I
one
know
thing
the
that's really
school's so
great,
small.
I know, the one thing that's great about working with MSBA is any project that we do through them, they assign us architects and engineers who will do a feasibility study. And so they can come out and tell us, here's a viable option, this is not a viable option, which is great that they centralize that expertise so that all school districts across the state are trying to contract individually for that kind of work.
Yeah, well,
So-
being in the construction business for the time that I had it, that would be a thought in my mind to expand on and try and
Right.
look into
Yeah, absolutely.
doing an L-shaped building and do something with that, because, I go down there and, Barbara Kelly does a outstanding job down there, and I know
She sure
all the
does.
teachers do, and Terry Inserto does a great job with the veteran thing with the kids, and,
Yeah.
it's just, I love going down there. I just feel badly that, they don't have the same type of facility as some of the other schools do. So I would look into potentially expanding somehow
Sure
and
thing.
help them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
all right.
Just for the record, when they built the Paul Revere School, I had made a recommendation to the building committee that it be built with the possibility of expanding up another floor. And I don't know whatever happened with that, but
I hope they took
Yeah.
your advice, but that would be
I
great if
hope
they
so.
did. Yeah,
but I did make that recommendation.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly.
thank you all very much. And thank you, as always, for your support for the school department. It really makes a huge difference in our success. Thank you.
Donnie, excuse me, do you mind if we take, this gentleman? his department. We're going to beat you up afterwards. Yeah. This really shouldn't take long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Donnie, for allowing me to go. I have a relatively straightforward and much simpler budget than what Donnie has to deal with. And just briefly to summarize, of the appropriated positions in the Strategic Planning and Economic Development Department, there are only two other than the Planning Board itself, myself and Frank Stringy. There will be essentially no increase in salary with the exception of Frank himself. As you know, Frank is semi-retired. His income is capped by virtue of his retirement agreement. So last year, Frank, who works 2 days a week, was compensated at the level of $30,000, which was an absolute steal. Next year, his allowance will go up to $45,000, which is still the best bargain in the building. So our budget this year is actually, notwithstanding the increase for Frank, $30,000 less than the budget for last year and about $15,000 more than our actual spending last year. So it remains a fairly lean budget. 4 of our positions are funded from grants. Those commitments in 2018 will also be going down because Bill Ash has recently announced his retirement. Fortunately, he will be doing essentially what Frank did, continuing to work on a 40 to 50% basis, making him a wonderful bargain. But our overall spending out of grant funds, which in total exceed $8 million, is about $240,000 for 4 positions next year. So in both appropriated and grant positions, I think we're reasonably efficient and fairly straightforward. But I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
And as far as the grants, that's something that historically, I believe, went back to Mayor Colella and possibly Mayor Reinstein with regard to funding that department through grants for the most
Indeed,
part.
yeah. And some of the grants do not allow for staffing.
Yeah.
Others do. But in total, they exceed more than $8 million, CDBG, MassWorks, I&I funds, and so forth. So it's a relatively good balance. Out of that, $240,000 is committed to fairly significant staffing functions. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Any questions, councilors? Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's only 3 of you.
Council?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, in the sheets that we have, I guess last year they kind of did a reorg.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, last year was my first year.
Because there are names assigned to one side, and there are no names assigned to where the grant money comes through the Deputy Director, Housing Intake, and Economic Development. It shows a position, but there's no numbers next to it.
Well, I do have those numbers. In total, they're $240,000 for fiscal year 18. They were about $100,000 more than that in fiscal year 17. I can provide you with the detail if you need it.
So we don't have people going into those positions yet?
No, they're already staffed. They were staffed before my time, and they continue to be staffed.
Okay, so they moved those other people over?
Correct.
Now,
Correct.
Bill retired, or is retiring?
Bill is semi-retiring
Right.
as of July 1st.
So he's coming back part-time, like you said?
He comes back
Okay.
part-time. He
And,
actually, I mean, Bill has been here, I think, 40 years, but technically, you have to retire and then come back as a new employee.
Right, and John
So-
Squibb?
It's John Squibb, Bill Ash, John Festa, and Tyler Ash.
No, John's staying, or is?
John Stain,
He
yes.
is staying, okay. It must be on the other sheets that we got. I had the old book.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know in the official sheets whether their individual salaries are shown. I do have that information and can provide it to you if you wish. But as I say, it's a total of $240,000 for the 4 positions that will be staffed next year. Same people.
I believe it's not shown because it's not part of our budget.
It's not appropriated, yes, correct.
Councilor Haas.
Is that because some of it is funded through grants?
It's all for that reason, Bob, yes.
Okay, because
Yes.
I'm looking at the budget here, and a couple of people you just mentioned, John Squibb, John Fessett, so they're all zeroed out here.
They're all funded from outside sources, non-appropriated funds.
Can we get a copy of those outside grants?
Yes.
Not individually, but find out which individual is making what money from them.
Sure, by all
Thank you.
means, yeah. I'll provide those through the chairman.
Any other questions? Well, that's,
Okay.
well, yeah, yours is a very, very small budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you, Donnie. I appreciate not having to go after you. Much more complicated.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Donald Goodwin, Superintendent of Public Works, City of Revere. As you know, our department is made up of two divisions. One side of the house is the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, and the other side is DPW General. DPW General is composed of parks, sanitation, highway, the shop, water sewer billing, and the other side of the house is water, sewer, and drain. This past year has been kind of a fruitful year for us. We've made a lot of progress in the feasibility study as to a new facility down on Charger Street, and due to the help from the council this past year, we've been able to appropriate $1.3 million of purchasing of new equipment that will starting to roll in the next month or so. So at this time, I'm here to answer any questions that the council may have.
Donnie, one of those pieces of equipment, isn't that a new hot box too?
Yes,
So that'll give us the
yes.
accessibility to doing more potholes in the months coming.
Yes, John. That will actually enable us to double up on our effort because other than, major thoroughfares, but for most of the side streets and secondary roads, it only requires two people to go out and do potholes. Obviously, that crew is made up of four, so we'll be able to double up on what we're doing. So at this time next year, we should have double the effort on repairing the numerous potholes that are presently out there and that obviously will come in the future.
That's good news, because I think that's one of the, I know the prime complaints that I have is that, we just didn't have the manpower to go out and do the necessary work that we needed to do in a timely fashion, so this will help us tremendously. And
Yes, it will, Council.
thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent. Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How many people do you currently have working in your DPW in its entirety?
27 if you, take everybody that's down there, because there are some people that are out. That doesn't include like myself and Elaine and people like that.
What are the plans to increase the work?
As you see in here, we do have 6 available slots that are open on the water sewer billing side. My understanding is after the effort to be made to get the equipment, that as of January, those positions will be filled in full. We just had a lengthy discussion with the mayor and his staff this past week, and they're moving expeditiously in that manner to fill those spots.
Have they been ordered already, the equipment?
All the equipment has been ordered. Like I said, some of the material is going to be coming in pretty rapidly. We'll start seeing some of the smallest of the hot box. Will be the first thing that actually comes in. Some of the major equipment, like the crane truck and the utility truck that requires for the water department, could take upwards of 9 to 10 months to arrive.
So we're ahead of the game there, right there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
One other question I have is during the fire we just had,
Yes.
people complained about the lack of pressure in the hydrants. Can you explain that?
Well, it's a twofold type of problem. I was at jury duty during the day that the fire took place, and upon leaving jury duty, I got calls saying that, there was, I guess, 3 complaints about 3 separate hydrants that were experiencing some difficulty. After talking to my staff and talking to the chief, this is just an example of what happened to the Massport truck was having a difficult time getting pressure. This here was found inside their strainer. It probably did come from our distribution system. This thing is probably 30 to 40 years old. It looks like some type of old spacer that they used in some type of plumbing issue. So we do know that this here was absolutely the cause of what happened with the Massport vehicle. There were 2 other hydrants that were problematic. My staff was called to the fire in the early morning hours, and upon their arrival, they were able to get the hydrants working. I understand there was a couple of problems with the caps, but there was water to the hydrants. So there's, like I said, there's the Department of Public Works is the distribution side of it, so we did get water. There was water in the neighborhood. They did have a couple of problems with the caps on the hydrants. They couldn't get them up, but my people were able to go there, get the caps off relatively easily, and the water was then used to fight that fire.
That brings up another issue. As far as the maintenance of the hydrants, you people maintain it, who checks it? I always thought the fire department did, but that was...
Well, to be fair, we do have a new fire chief, and he's been in contact with me, and we have made some discussions on how we can share certain things. Obviously, as part of the distribution system, we're responsible for repairing hydrants that we know are broken.
Right.
Now, as far as going out, and we do have Roca and some of the summer kids go out and paint, a number of hydrants during the course of the year. But as far as going out, and there's roughly 900 hydrants throughout the city, and going after and taking the caps off and rotating them, that seemed to be the problem. It didn't seem to, and that I'm aware of, unless, and like I said, I wasn't there yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to really sit down in detail with Chief Bright yet. But Chief Bright and I had a very good conversation today, and we are going to have a meeting next week with all the parties concerned to figure out exactly what happened at those 2 hydrants that they couldn't get a cap off.
Well, that's good, because people hear this, that the fire hydrants aren't
Right.
operational.
They
Okay,
were
that caused a major
operational.
problem.
There was an issue with getting the cap off of 2 hydrants. But the thing about the hydrants is they have 3 ports on it. There's one 5-inch port on the front, and there's 2 2.5 ports on the side. So I guess somebody made a determination when they couldn't get one of the caps open that it was out of service, but that just wasn't the case. When the gentleman from my department got there and got the caps off, there was water to the hydrant.
And one last question, what's the ultimate aim of the DPW facility itself?
Well, obviously, the building itself, as you know, is built for the telephone company. We really need to find out what the feasibility study is going to tell us. The building itself is not large enough for us. The site is really not large enough for us. The site is the actual perfect place for it to be. It really is a great location. We're looking at other avenues as to whether we build a facility on another site or whether they're going to restore the building that's presently there. I think we'll take all mitigating factors into consideration, what the city can afford, what they can build, and what the cost will be for land acquisition and building, as opposed to either selling our land and building on our property. The best thing that for us would be to build off-site so that we can utilize the facility we have now, because if we can move into a facility after, we need a place to stay while they're building this facility, and it's going to take a year or 2 to build a facility. And it's not just moving trucks. It's, there's a lot of parts, there's a lot of technology for the computers, and, we need to be able to fuel our tanks. So it's a big undertaking just to move off of there. So obviously, the best-case scenario would be if in our area where we are, if we could appropriate another piece of land in that area that's a little bit bigger, and now we can accommodate what we're doing now in the old garage, and maybe there's some type of, obviously, we could probably sell that land when we're done to offset the cost of building there. Those are some of the things we're looking at, but we won't really have the total idea of where we're heading and where we're going until the feasibility study is done and completed. I believe that feasibility study should be done within the next 3 to 5 weeks, and then we can sit down with the Public Works Committee and to decide, what's the best direction for the city, not only for the operation of the Public Works, but this is going to be a big financial commitment on behalf of the city, and that's something that has to be addressed as well.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you.
Donnie, I just have one question. Excuse me, Councilor Patch. You went.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a question on pertaining to the caps on the fire hydrants. I know a lot of subcontractors have been doing work with those fire hydrants, and without any supervision from the city, they were taken. Overtime was taken from them. Would you know if that area was one of the areas that the subcontractors were working?
We did have a problem with one of the hydrants that was in that area earlier, but it was repaired, and they did utilize that hydrant during the fire. The problem that we have is we do tell our contractors to come in. There's street sweeping contracts, but it's not only us, it's the state. If you're along that parkway, they're cleaning their drains and things as well. So there are contracts, and then private contractors who have nothing to do with the city are out there, they're stealing our water. And it's just a matter of, can you catch them? I don't think it's that, pervasive, but it does happen. And the problem is once they, what you really need to do, you only need to put them on hand tight and give it a little snug, so in the event that the fire department has to come, they don't have to muscle that thing to get it off. Because if somebody's going to take the time out to show up to a hydrant with a wrench, there's no need to put so much pressure on it that they don't come off very easily. So this is part of the discussion that Chief Wright and I had today, and we are going to develop a joint task force to go out there and figure out, how we can go out and service all these 900 hydrants that are throughout the city. That hydrant in question that had the problem with the cap is quite old. And we do have a hydrant replacement program that we replace X amount of hydrants every year, but the number is large. And, we replace as many as we can in-house, and then we have a separate contract that goes out, but they're quite expensive. Just to buy the hydrant itself is in the thousands of dollars, and then when you factor in, you're trying to replace 900 hydrants over a course of, so many years. But we do pick away at it every year, and one of those hydrants just happened to be quite old that was being used. But as far as water in the system, the water was in the system, and the valve, once opened and the caps were off, water was delivered to the system.
I only got one other question. We budgeted for, I don't know what the total new hires for your department last budget. Would you have that total?
That was the same six that I spoke about previously.
But did they go for the whole year without?
Well, I think the intent was, as you heard Nick Catanazzo suggest earlier, that the intent, I think, was to hire somebody to take control of just water and sewer, so that would alleviate me to do, help with water and sewer, but also pay, much more attention to what's going on at the DPW side. As Council Powell has alluded to, we have a, pretty good pothole problem, sidewalk problem, tree problem. So there's a lot of things that need to be done. And from a managerial standpoint, you look at other cities and towns, the structure for public works is there's anywhere from 3 to 5 administrators that would administrate a public works division, and presently we only have 1. So I think the intent of the mayor was to, ease the burden, become more productive, and make things move smoother. But during that hiring process, we really haven't been able to find anybody that sort of meets what we're doing. So I think that's the reason why they didn't hire the people that was their intent. But after going through this exercise a couple of times now, we've had a discussion with the mayor, and I think he is going to go forward and just hire whoever the workers are, so the guys with the shovels, as
That's what we
opposed
need.
to, yes. And that will help out greatly. And he's aware of it. I think their thought and it was well intended. He's only been there a year, and I think from management structure and standpoint, that made all the sense in the world to do that. It's just, as Nick said, they can't fill their positions. It's very difficult to fill positions like that these days. I know other cities and towns are having the same problem. They're actually hiring engineering firms to come in and actually run some of their water departments, or just outright privatizing. So, and that's not the intent here, and so we will be moving forward with those hires.
Thank you.
Any other councils?
Please.
Council Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Mr. Superintendent. 3 or 4 categories I want to go over that I'm looking at. I noticed that we're not doing hanging flowers this year,
Yes.
okay? But we're still putting in $59,850 into that spraying and planting program.
Well, we have the tree program that we have that the state actually goes, we do have to go out and water and things like that. We do have people that we have to hire to go out and do, there's many trees they were doing. Spraying, we got some mosquito control that we're using, efforts for and stuff like that. So there are some needs from the park and recreation side that money is being utilized for.
So we're basically still watering all the new trees that DCR is putting in?
DCR, the ones we put in, we put all these new
New
trees
trees,
on
yes.
Broadway, up and down.
So we're still going to have the
So
water
we've
machine?
shifted away from
Hanging plants?
hanging plants to actual trees.
Now, does that mean we're not doing anything on the beach either?
We contacted DCR, and we didn't get really any response from them, Myra, as to, I think what we're looking at is, and I spoke to the mayor about this, he's looking to put up banners that can be on the beach, be on all the thoroughfares, and I think that money goes a long way to broadening that program, because once you buy the flowers and buy they're dead, they're gone. You get them for 3-4 months. You can get the banners. The banners are, believe it or not, they're probably cheaper than the flowers, and a banner will last you 3 to 5 years if you take them down and put them up properly, keep them clean. And now, instead of just having them on Broadway, Shirley Avenue, Street, we can, like Walden Street, other avenues that we can Beachmont, we can actually show some pride in the city with a design banner that will include all the people in all the various neighborhoods.
That seems to be the motif of a lot of cities
It
and
is.
towns that I've been
It is.
going around to, getting people to help advertise them. And
It's not like that we didn't like, flowers, but it's becoming a very, very expensive proposition. The flowers are expensive. They only last a year, not even, three to 4 months. And you need to maintain them. You got to water them on weekends. Now you got overtime, and it's just it's a lot of money to maintain.
so
those
we don't
hanging
have to water anything on the beach? On the
We
boulevard?
are doing the trees. The guys still, the new trees that we're.
Trees on the beach?
Some
On
of
the
them, yes,
boulevard?
and especially around the Markey Bridge. That DCR considers
we
that.
kind of own that,
Yeah,
right.
they don't want to have anything to do there. And I think at some point, we'll probably entertain a beautification type of program for the entrance and exit from that
Right.
bridge.
Well,
Because
I'm sure they have that, like, construction going on down there, too, so.
Right.
Talking about trees and tree removal and tree trimming, I know your numbers have gone down from 17 down to, up to, from 18, from 17 to 18. We lost like $5,000 on the budget.
That is true, Council. As you can see, this is a pretty lean budget. There were some issues that, there were a lot of things that we're contractually obligated to do, is like trash and things, and the mayor obviously is probably trying to keep the overall budget with it. But if you look through this budget, there are level-funded issues, there are increases in certain areas, and that was one of the places that we did have a 5% cut. But that's also one of the accounts that we come back to the council year after year for a supplemental appropriation. Right. And I'm not saying that that will be the final, but there may be, if it becomes necessary, that we would come before the council for additional money if it's available through a supplemental appropriation at a later time.
Yeah, I haven't seen the money usage. I don't know what's left in the account.
I don't think, there's not a lot of money left in the tree account at all. As a matter of fact, last year we added money to that account to accommodate all the necessary tree work that we did do.
Thought they said 10,000?
Well, presently, if you look at for next year, we are down to 5,000, but we have, it says fiscal year to date, we've spent 62 out of the 72, but that doesn't include the recent work that's been done. So I would say that that account is virtually depleted, and there will be no encumbrances from that account to carry over to next year.
Yeah, because I don't see any transfers on the last transfer
Right.
list that we had for that. One of the issues I have is on tree trimming just alone. New trees I know we can get from DCR. They're doing pretty well with us.
One of the new pieces of equipment that we did purchase is going to be a box for trimming, where right now, if you see when we go out and we do some tree trimming in-house, we use a dump truck and the truck is up. It's really not the proper way to do something. So we're getting a box truck that we can use as a dump truck for other reasons. It's a multi-task type of a truck, so we'll be able to send our chipper to go out and start trimming some of these smaller jobs that can be done.
I've been looking for 3 or 4 years now to get trees trimmed along the hill streets because the street sweepers can't get up to the curb.
Well, I agree, Ira, and the bigger problem for me is plowing. And so, and it's a citywide
even
problem.
similar reason.
Right.
Similar
So it's a citywide problem. That's why we addressed it with the new appropriations that you afforded us through new equipment accounts. So that has been purchased. We have bought some saws, and we do plan on doing a lot more in-house trimming. None of the, not the big trees removal, but for the trimming.
I'm just looking for basic trimming on the street, because that's the biggest complaint I'm getting from the neighbors and the people in the street, that the street sweeper isn't getting up to the curb because
There are some areas that I agree with you.
The poor guy from Arrow, he must lose 3 or 4 windshields.
Mirrors. Mirrors are the big, we
The
do
way
this,
the way
right.
they're low, those
Yeah.
branches are hitting the windshields.
So that was all part of our plan when we went forward with buying the new equipment.
Well, I hope I can see some tree trimming in the near future. Like, people are complaining to me.
No,
they're low.
I'm hopefully we'll get that truck in early because, like I said, I look at it from a snow removal issue, and we need to get up against those curbs. And the city, as you know, I don't have to tell you, you live in one of those most congested areas. The closer you can get to the curb, the safer the people are. The streets are wider.
Well, that has to do with the drivers, too.
Well, if they can get to the curb, then we can't blame the trees.
Okay, going down to prisoners' cruise, at the bottom of that list, it says guardrails. Why would that be under prisoner cruise.
That's just historically, we put in $10,000 a year for miscellaneous guardrails here and there if there is a need for an additional guardrail, but that's in there for, obviously, if you had an account that had lots of money for guardrails in there, you guys would get inundated with guardrails. We get them, people want them on side streets, guardrails are used usually in a dangerous intersection or somewhere there, but today, people being so safety conscious, they want them side streets, here, there, anywhere they feel they may be unsafe. So the guardrails are there, we put it there so that when we know that we have a dangerous intersection or something gets hit and we weren't able to get the police department to get us an insurance claim against it, that we could replace that guardrail.
Guardrail.
Where?
Conway Shirley Ave and North Shore Road.
With,
They protected the light that Bellafato put in.
we tried the bollards there, it didn't work, you're right.
But, no, we put it in,
No,
there are
we did.
lights.
Yeah, they are.
Those
There
are our lights.
There may be a problem there, we were thinking about that, and the way to wrap that, there's a lot of utility, electrical underneath that sidewalk and things, so we really need to take a hard look at that. We may have to relocate some of the conduit.
That was my
Yeah,
initial
yeah.
recommendation, and George said, well, why don't we do this for now? Because they had Dick Safe already do the
Right.
marking to
Because
move it back along the fence.
I think if you had talked to George Bellafato, he would tell you that's a tight intersection, and there's a
No
lot.
question.
Yeah, there's a lot of utilities, signalization, electrical, fiber optic, there's a lot of utilities under the ground, and for us to be driving, guardrail posts down through,
This is away from the street. It's along the credit union fence. Where he marked it.
Right.
He marked it that way for the best spot to have it. I don't know why they didn't move it in the first place instead of trying to put the guardrail in. But, that would be my next move, is to request that it be
remove the signal pole.
relocated back.
You'd have to, yeah, I did discuss that with him, you'd get up the longer mast that would come out to cover the intersection.
Well, it's just a straight mast anyway, so.
Well, if you push the signal down, that means you've got to come back up closer, so you do have to have a longer mast.
You'd have to put it, definitely, you'd have to
Right.
put like a 5-foot mast on it, the length of a sidewalk,
At
just to
least.
see it, yeah.
At least,
Yeah, but, that thing's getting hit 5 and 6 times a year.
You're being generous, Council.
Okay, thank you. So, the next item is street sweeping,
Yep,
and you know my thing on that. And again, it's from the people that I hear, most of the complaints that they get are in the fall with the leaves, because the street sweepers we have now are only the brush sweepers, and they make more of a mess when they go through in the fall when the leaves are on the ground, trying to pick them up. And why not have Arrow, whoever we have with the street sweeping, use a vacuum machine rather than, I know it's a little more money, but based on what I see and what the people are saying to me, a vacuum machine would solve a lot of problems.
the thing about, and when we have discussed this, Council, I sat down and talked about this a lot, the difficulty with the Vector is, the Vector type thing, in any type of wet weather or matted material, it has a tendency not to pick it up. But as for leaves, yes. As far as future endeavors to purchase a Vector, maybe that's something we do because it would be a backup as opposed to being the frontline machine. The good thing that we have now is we just recently hired a mechanic, and he's very, very good. I mean, he's got the sweeper backer. You'll see that we deducted some money out of the total sweeping account because he's gotten our sweeper back up and running. He's got a lot of equipment that's been sitting around, back up and running. So we feel that he'll be able to maintain our current Pelican sweeper, and whether it's next year or the year after when we have another round of purchasing for equipment, then the Vector is on our radar screen. And I have contacted a company, and they will come down that time of year and demonstrate how it will work under those conditions.
Yeah.
So-
I've seen
Yeah.
some cities and towns go around with the little one-man machine with the hose hanging on the side and doing along the curb.
We actually,
don't have full-time
we actually
use of
have
that.
one of them, and we just didn't have enough personnel to get up. Because the leaves, obviously, no, but going up and down like Broadway, It's got a snorkel, you can sit
Right.
on the back of it, you ride it,
Yeah.
it works. We did use it for a while, but, now it's 15, 16 years old, and it's not running anymore, so.
Yeah.
But we did utilize one of them on Broadway
But
for quite a few years.
I think the Vector vacuum, even if it's, from Arrow, just for those 2-3 months in the fall.
Well, when the next contract comes up,
To
maybe
think
we
it
can,
really,
add that in as a requirement to get the contract.
It's not, you don't need it all year round. All you need is for those 3 months, and why should we buy a machine that we're only going to use for 3 months a year?
And they may say the same thing, that
But-
why would they
But they all
spend?
have those machines.
Well, some companies do. I think companies that do parking lots are more apt to have the Vector type of sweeper than, say, the people that work for municipalities or the state agencies. If you look, DCR, Mass DOT, cities and towns, most of them have the Pelican sweepers because they do a better job under most of the circumstance. But when it comes to the leaves, I totally agree with your counsel. They can't compete.
And the Pelican doesn't do bumpy streets.
Neither does the Vector.
Well, at least the Vector picks up, the paper,
Well,
maybe
it can,
picking
and
out.
it leaves
can pick it down
leaves
and it
dirt and
leaves.
debris
But
behind,
the
correct.
Pelican, some of our streets, are pretty bad. And with all the trenches, it goes straight across and it doesn't pick up in the trenches. And people complain, that's what I hear
No,
from
I hear you. No, it's a valid point, Counsel.
And thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman. I just got 2 more items.
2 more.
2 more. Culvert cleaning.
Yes. Culvert cleaning has become a real problem for all municipalities. We just recently found, we're trying to get a grant. The biggest problem with culvert cleaning is not the actual cleaning of the culverts. The actual cleaning of the culverts is a very simple process. We have a state agency that comes in and does it for us. They're the same ones that do the mowing. The problem with culvert cleaning today is that the regulatory regulations have changed from the federal and the state government. Now, you're no longer, we used to side cast everything to the side, build up the banks, and, move on, keep the culverts flowing. Under the current law, you need to remove that material from the culvert and dispose of it. Well, the problem with the culverts is over the last 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, people, not probably in the recent time, but, 15 years ago, 20 years, they used to pour their oil down the drain. You had the MBTA, you had the utility companies with the PCB transformers that own yards and things along these things. So what we find is, and it happened to us at Wonderland, is we get into the stuff. We went to take it to any material that we did excavate. We used to just bring it to Resco and they would burn it. Well, they can't accept it any longer. And we got from the DEP and EPA, no, this has got to go to this landfill. The cost can range anywhere from $100 to $465 a ton. So it's a very, very expensive proposition. And they'll say, well, the culverts belong to the city of Revere. It does, okay? And some of it has a little bit of DCI, a little bit of DOT, very minor. But the problem is they're utilizing our assets. As we utilize their assets for parking lots, and our sewers run through their parking lots, our water runs through their parking lots, our drainage runs through their parking lots. Well, they hit us with an assessment fee, so I have to pay state agencies because I have utilities on their property. Well, if they want to use our culverts, maybe we come up with a program that I've been talking about this with the mayor's staff, how can we go about saying, okay, that's fine, but if you're going to utilize our culverts to rid yourself of your floodwaters and drainage waters, the fee is at least somewhat, well, it's helpful, Ira, because I'm telling you, there's millions and millions of dollars, especially where you are down, that creek behind there. How many oil spills did those tank farms have over there that's in there?
Forget 70.
I mean, 20, 30 years ago, that stuff used to catch fire when you put a match to it
How are
down
we
there.
making out with the T on that?
Actually,
Behind the Garfield.
I was pretty excited today. I got an email from a longtime friend that I had at the T. I haven't heard from him. It's all because of Speaker DeLeo. I just want people to know that. He put the pressure on, and I am going to talk. You may have spoken this because we've dealt with him before, Ira. 15 years or so with Mr. DeFranzo. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he seems to be able to make things happen. So he
You're right.
called me today.
Oh, good.
I'm going to get together with him probably next week because they did come down and they did something, but I think they made it worse.
Yeah.
Because by the action that they took, I think they pushed more material up the pipe than they did clearing away from the front of the pipe because we can't get through it with our jetpack. So,
Because I remember about 5-6 years ago, they actually put the grade all
yes.
and did that stretch from the bridge, the walk bridge, all the way down to.
Yeah, 10 years ago, he actually did the entire length of it right
Right.
up in, and it was under Mr. DeFranzo's the direction.
Right.
So
So-
I was very happy to hear from him personally today.
One more.
And once again, if it wasn't for the input of the mayor and Speaker DeLeo, we'd be.
I've been talking to the
Yes.
Speaker's office on a
Okay.
regular basis.
Very good.
The last item on materials, as far as replacing fencing, is that where that would come out of
Yes.
replacement? Okay. Top of Hillside Ave, from the public stairs down to about 41 Hillside. It's
Yeah,
all
we-
rotted, the trees have fallen on it.
Well, Hillside Ave's got two problems. The upper end and then the lower end is the fence is fairly new, and it's been, and it has a lot to do with snow removal issues, people parking on the sidewalk, they're hitting that fence. But obviously, something needs to be done in that area because it is
You know,
dangerous.
the stretch
Yeah.
from 41 Hillside
All the way, yeah, up to the
back-
stairs.
Back
Yeah,
to the
yes.
stairs. You know,
Yeah.
I put that request in, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can get, even if we do it piecemeal for now, I don't care. We've just got to get those people some safety up there, because someone's going to fall off that cliff.
I don't disagree that there could be an accident waiting to
So
happen.
I
there,
just want to
Counselor.
bring that out front and
We're aware of it.
push it again.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your
Thank you,
attitude.
Counselor. Latitude, I think
Hey,
that's an
listen,
understatement.
that's why we're here, to ask questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
know why we're here.
yeah, I know.
Well, then let me do
Mr.
my
Chairman?
thing. That's
Counselor
why I
Hess.
came.
Yeah.
Do you know the water that comes onto Revere Beach Parkway because of the houses?
Yes.
That's still wet. I mean, that's amazing.
Council Novoselsky and I have been dealing with this probably for 2.5 to 3 years now.
Why don't we go to the
there-
legal counsel?
I think that Ben DeCristoforo, and I know that Engineer Reisram has been pretty harsh with this gentleman. Hopefully, it's coming to a conclusion. I know they've been doing some work up there. It's bad.
Especially in the wintertime, it ices up.
It's bad, and hopefully we can eliminate that issue. The issue that I think is going to happen there now, if he ties into the existing infrastructure that's in place there, we don't have any drop downs within the pipe that's coming from up top. That infrastructure was only built for those condos way up on the highway. It wasn't made to accommodate that runoff coming down from off of Hopkins Street and off those hills in the back. Where that house was built and where that area is now, that was a percolation area that used to come down, and it came like this. As Councilor Novoselsky will attest to, there's a lot of fill in that land up there now that was never there before. And so it looks like they've raised the elevation of that land about 2 to 3 feet.
Right.
And so now it's not really a sponge, because it just soaks through and then comes out of the banks and comes flowing down, and it's from all directions. And under a couple of days worth of rain, the thing keeps draining out of the hill, because it acts like a sponge, but it's not going down. It just starts to leach out, and it just comes down that driveway, and it's a problem.
So you believe it's going to be resolved shortly?
It needs to be resolved before.
You have all the answers.
Iri's been on this, he really has. I have to give him credit. He's been on top of this one from day one. We had a very serious accident up there this past winter during the last freeze-up that we had. and it was a multi-car pileup, and there were some utility damages and telephone poles and things of that nature, Bob. So it's not something that I know that the engineering department has taken lightly. I know Benny is starting to really see the seriousness of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're trying to, my thought is that at some point, the city may have to do some additional infrastructure work at the bottom of the hill just to collect the volume of water that's coming down there.
Well, that was caused by the contractor, right?
Well, if
I mean, he diverted the water. The
he
developer.
diverted the water, but the infrastructure that's presently there for him to tie into is not sufficient to handle the amount of runoff that he's created
Right.
that was never there before.
Exactly. Thank you, Donnie.
Mr. Chairman, just, if I may, just to fill in Councilor Hass and the superintendent, as of yesterday, they tied into that drain up top. They put in a French drain and ran it across the back of his property and actually tied it into that manhole at the top of the hill. So right now, he's tied into it. Nobody has given him permission to do it, but he did it
Okay.
anyway.
Right, I haven't seen, what I'm looking to see, Ira, is what is going to happen with that debris that comes out of there, and how it's going to affect
Right.
that debris coming down
Yeah.
right onto Hillside Avenue and clogging up those basins, so that he eliminates the problem on his property,
Creates
but
it
then it creates
down
it
below.
down on Hillside Avenue.
Yeah,
So
the-
that's something that I'm
Yeah.
very concerned about.
Part two to that is that drain on the right-hand side of the building on the east side. He has just a roof drain coming down.
Yes.
And that actually drains down across the street now.
Yeah.
I don't know if he put in a.
I had conversations with him. He's going to do some work on the street to actually collect it so that the water will go into that basin that's,
Okay.
and it's going to be before it crosses Hillside Ave. So if he can accomplish that, you know.
So we
that-
may be halfway there for now, but we don't know
Correct.
what the results are going to be down the road.
I think what you're going to need is a very active maintenance program on that lower end to make sure that's flowing all the time, because it's just not our system. That ties into the state system before it gets into the culvert. And the state, if we don't keep ours very clean and that goes downstream, the state operates very differently. Well, we can respond to some if we see there's a problem. Their maintenance programs usually go over, twice a year, once a year, 3 times a year, and that's the extent of it, so. Right.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. I have to charge you rent pretty soon. Donnie, just a couple of issues. The plants on the boulevard, the hanging plants,
Yes.
and I had a call from one of the residents down on the northern section of the boulevard, and they indicated to me that, well, we were doing them originally, and then there was a problem with the state. They wanted to do them or something, and they never got done, or is that correct, or partway correct?
It's a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there. I think the ultimate plan, John, is to eliminate the hanging baskets and go to a banner type of issue, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a maintenance standpoint as well. I think that, when you tally up what it costs for the plantings, I know, Councilor Hash, you were the guy that started the whole thing, and yes, and it was a small program. And so what's been happening now is that all of Broadway, Revere Street, Beachmont, Shirley Ave, all of, even though the state didn't want to do it initially, we were hanging on the beach. So that it's quite an undertaking, and they're expensive. Those baskets can cost, $65 a piece, and then and more, depending on, what you may want to buy, and then you have to maintain them. They have to be watered every day. It's not something you can let go. You let them go a couple of days, then you get a windstorm, they're blown all over the streets. They're causing property damage, and we're forever repairing the poles and the hangers. So it's become because of the number of baskets that we have. But we do believe in the beautification issue of it. So we're looking at a banner, something that maybe we can bring to each individual neighborhood throughout the city that has their own identity, try to, develop something that can identify.
Where are we with that?
certain-
Where are we with that right now? Because as you know, we're into June, and I know it's not going to happen this year, but can we?
Well, there may be some up before the end of that. I know that Paul Agenzio has been working on that diligently, John, and he's been carrying the ball on that. I really haven't
So they have a
been
design
involved in that.
already?
Excuse me?
They have a design
There-
already?
Well, there is one, but I think as this moves forward,
Yeah.
I think that we will be looking at other type of banners that we can put up that will, kind of identify certain neighborhoods we live in, maybe take a little civic pride in the schools and things of that nature. And, so that there are things that we're looking at, but I think it'll be well worth it once
I
we,
do too. I mean,
once we get it up rolling. The people don't see it now because, the flowers were beautiful, but when you take something away and you haven't replaced it with anything yet.
It's bare, there's
Right.
nothing there.
And so I think in the
that's
next, by this time next year, I'm certain that we'll have a much better grip on what's going on.
All right, with that said, now, I'm back to fire hydrants. Down in Oak Island, as you know, there was a hydrant hit
Yeah.
a couple of years ago on North Shore Road. I'm told by Nick Rystrom that the fire chief and he have gone down there and identified an area where that's going.
Yes.
Can you tell me when that might happen?
That is in the fire hydrant replacement program that's being done under contract, John. I don't know the specifics of when that contract is going to be executed, whether it's in this year's contract or next year's contract. I can certainly follow up and find out.
That's been
Yeah.
out of service now for 3 or 4
At
years.
least, yes, yeah.
And it's...
And to be honest with you, John, it's been longer than that, because every time we put it up, it get hit by a bus, so it
So
was
now
just,
it's in a different
yeah,
location, and-
exactly.
and
Yeah.
it should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, the other issue I have is on the Ponce Street, on the playground,
Yes,
there was some pieces of equipment, like little horses and things that the kids would get on. Well, at least one of them, that's gone now, and sticking out of the ground is a piece of metal that supported that. And I have mentioned that several times, not to yourself, but to other individuals, and it's still there. And I'm afraid that, kids are going to start using that, and somebody's going to get hurt, and then we're going to have a huge lawsuit on our hands. So I'd like to see that at least pulled out of there and something added in its place. Because that's a nice little park down there, and the kids do enjoy that. So that would be nice if we could get that done.
and while we're on the subject of the Ponce Street, John, we are working towards
That was my
rectifying
next.
that
That was my
drainage.
next
Yes,
question. You know Mary Jones.
I do.
Okay, and she's a wonderful person.
she absolutely is.
She has a little in-house business, which is perfectly legal. She does taxes, and I've witnessed, at least on 4 occasions, people coming to go into her house, and there's a huge puddle there. They couldn't get in there. And as you know, I spoke to the water sewer supervisor, and he made one comment, and I
I
just...
know, and I have spoken to him about that, Counselor, and there is no truth to that comment that he made. Not to say we're not aware of it. I think that, when it became a real issue for her, obviously it was right around the tax season, around
Yeah,
April,
and-
and at that point, we weren't really sure what was happening in that area, because this goes back to the Eastern County ditch and the drainage. It's not just, that one basin or that one street, it's that whole watershed that needs to be addressed. And we are addressing the Eastern County ditch through some mitigation money that we have. Hopefully, we'll have something changed with the DEP and EPA so that we can actually go into that entire Eastern County ditch and clean it from North Shore Road all the way to Revere Street. But we do know that on parts of Sagamore and on the Ponce Street, the bottoms of those pipes are completely destroyed. They're gone. It's old corrugated steel. So Mr. Magdalena's point being is that he didn't want to go in there and jet that with 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of pressure, because we'd blow the pipe apart, John. We knew that. So if you notice the last 3 or 4 big storms that we have gone down there with a pump and actually pumped it across the street, so the water, it would eventually go down, but it takes a couple of days for it to go down. So in the event that she has a serious puddling there, she can call us and we'll pump it. But I would say within the next 30 to 60 days, that will be rectified.
Yeah, we can go in there and replace the,
We're going to replace the pipe. We're going to take it out. It looks as though we're going to have to use ductile iron pipe there, because the coverage is a little different there. You know, the work they've done down there with water and some of the soil work they've done there in the last couple of years. So the drainage aspect of it is the last.
the new water line is worked out well down there from what I can
Yes,
see.
it
There's
has.
no sinking of the trenches,
No.
and I credit that to
No, you
Donnie
did a great
Tramara
job.
being down
Yeah,
there all the
yeah,
time, keeping
yeah,
an eye
yeah.
on the contractors, and it's just, it's really worked
Yeah,
out well.
it has.
I still have yet to find one of those trenches that's sunk. It's not happening.
Was that, John?
The trenches, they're not sinking
Correct, right.
because they took all the bad fill out and they
Correct.
put some new stuff in there and compacted it
Right.
properly. Donnie, thank you very much.
All right.
I don't have any more questions
Any other
on the
questions,
budget. It's a very lean budget.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for your
I want to
support over this
compliment the
past
mayor
year.
on
The-
giving us a budget that is so lean.
Yeah. And, I just want to let you know that the guys in the city yard appreciate the efforts that you put forward on helping us get some new equipment this year and getting a feasibility study going, so that at some point we can have a new building. And also the fact that you guys have been very supportive of additional help for our department. So I appreciate it. I know the men appreciate it.
This
And
is the-
hopefully next year, when we have this discussion, we'll have some successes to
This is the
discuss.
first time that I've, as chairman of Ways and Means, that I've found a budget that there's been really nothing to cut. If you started cutting out of this budget, you'd be cutting services that
Right.
are sorely needed.
And while we're on that, John, I know there is one thing that's probably going to stick out there where we just got a lot of new equipment. You'll see in the new equipment that there is a $25,000 money in there for new equipment. That's not for trucks. We need to upgrade our trenching because of what's happening in Boston. We do have a trench box, but it's not nearly sufficient for what we need. And a trench box system, hydraulic trench box system, is very expensive. Just to buy that, it's going to be roughly $25,000. So, and when it comes to the safety of the men, I think it's an investment that's well worth it, and it's just a necessary thing. So when you guys peruse this budget and you're looking for something that can be cut.
No, I
It's a
understand.
very lean budget, and I understand, and you guys are trying to do the best you can for the tax, but when you look at that new equipment that is not for trucks and vehicles, it's for safety equipment for trench safety. So that when the guys are, 6, 10, 8 feet below the ground, that they have the proper shoring on the trenches.
There's
and on
areas
to be-
down in that area down there that
It's very
could very
shady.
easily collapse.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, Donnie.
Thank you, councilors. I appreciate it, and once again, thank you.
That concludes the June 15th. Madam Clerk. Okay. Okay, well, I'm so used to you sitting there. Okay. Okay,
Good evening, committee members, chairman.
what is it? What page?
Oh, I don't have the page numbers in front of me. We're going to do city clerk, parking clerk, city council, and zoning board of appeals.
Okay. All right, you want to, Madam Clerk, start off with, your budget and give us an overview and...
Sure, it's pretty much straightforward. For our contracted services account, You will see a $14,000 difference. That is actually for the Minitrack software that the city council uses, that is going to be coming from ETP funds.
Yep.
That's the only major change on the city clerk budget. As far as the parking clerk goes, as you are all aware, we had advertised for the position of a new parking clerk, and we actually created a budget this year, which there hasn't been done one in the past for the parking clerk's office. The new parking clerk is expected to start on July 10th. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Who's the new parking clerk?
Richard Wagner, pending him finding suitable housing within the city of Revere. Hopefully, he'll be starting on July 10th.
So he's a non-resident, is that?
He's from Poughkeepsie, New York, but he's in the process of finding suitable housing at this time in the city of Revere.
Well, I would imagine he wouldn't be commuting back and forth to New York.
That would be a very long commute,
Yeah,
Counselor.
okay. I don't really have any questions. I mean, council salaries, anything like that, there's no increases there
No,
to speak of?
no.
There's no increases in any expenses?
No, it's pretty much level funded.
There's nothing else you can,
No,
yeah.
unless you guys want to, make
I do, I personally, I do think, and I know that's not going to happen this year, but I do think with all of the work that's done in your office, that office is understaffed to some degree, and, you know, compared
It
to what
is.
it was years ago, and I know you could use at least one more body in that office down there, because I see the city's growing. You know, we've gone from years ago, maybe 45,000 people in the city. We're close to 60,000 now that we know of. And I'm in there every day, as you know, and I see people coming in and coming up to that counter. They're not only bringing new business for you, but sometimes they're very argumentative, and that, of course, takes time and to settle the whatever the case may be. So I want to compliment you and your staff on the job you do there. You're very efficient, you're very effective, and under sometimes very difficult circumstances.
Thank you,
I just had to
Counselor.
say
I
that
really
because
appreciate
I
those
see it.
comments.
Thank you. Is that it? No questions? Well, that concludes
Thank
the
you.
June 15th meeting of the Ways and Means Committee, and we'll be back here again for our third meeting. Thank you.